the number of deaths due to the pandemic continue to decline, is it time to do away with the restrictions? Are they still fit for purpose? That is the question we want to answer. We're joined by two leading experts, voices you've become familiar with hearing in terms of our handling of the pandemic. We're joined by Professor Musa Moshabela, who is the Professor of Public Health and the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And also, of course, to add his voice to this conversation, we're joined by Professor Shabir Madhi, the Wits University Professor of Vaccinology and also the Dean of the Health Sciences Faculty at Wits University. I'll start with you, Professor Madhi. And I'll start by asking you the question. The number of deaths are down, and it would appear there's widespread community immunity, and whether that's naturally or via vaccination, is it time to scrap these rules and return to normal? And is it that simple?
Good morning, Bongani. And the short answer is certainly so, based on where we are currently in the pandemic. And as you correctly pointed out, despite really stuttering vaccine rollout, inadvertently, at least 70% of South Africans developed immunity and protection against severe disease, and that was before the Omicron wave. We are planning to repeat that study, and I wouldn't be surprised if that figure now sits at 85 to 90%. So much of the regulations that are promulgated under the Disaster Act, unfortunately right now, it's got more detrimental effects than positive effects, and in fact, to some extent, it's completely counterproductive as to what we should be doing at this phase of the pandemic.
But critics will say, hang on, the regulations were there to manage a number of challenges, including, of course, providing economic relief and to combat the disruption that would be due to the effects of the pandemic. Those are surely still with us.
Well, not the disruptions due to the pandemic. In fact, the regulations right now are creating more of a disruption than the pandemic itself. And the reason for that is we're no longer expecting to have overwhelming of healthcare facilities. And COVID-19 during the course of 2022 is unlikely to cause any more deaths than would have occurred before COVID in relation to seasonal influenza, which causes about 10 to 11,000 people to die in South Africa. And in fact, much less than the 58,000 people that will die of tuberculosis. With regard to the social relief under the Disaster Act, that can be incorporated under the Social Assistance Act. So we're not saying that we need to do away with the 350 rand grant, but that can be incorporated under other acts that exist in South Africa.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.